members. Sir William Seal.
Mr. Chairman, normally at this stage of the debate, members would come to the House armed with the Select Committee report, or we would come armed with paper for public submissions from the members of the public who took the time to make submission, or we would come armed with the advice by the ministry, or we would come armed with the legal advice by the Parliamentary Council or the regulatory impact statement. And alas, sir, none of that is available to us. And I want to state that at the outset because I think it's important, even though the members of the government are hanging their heads in shame because this is not the kind of practice that this House normally accepts. I would hope that you give the time to members of the opposition to analyse each and every one of these single clauses in this bill, because we've been denied the expert advice that we would normally receive if this went through a select committee process. I wanted to ask the previous member the minister that was in the chair, given he is a member from the Auckland region, if he would stand up for Aucklanders and help the opposition by answering some of the questions that my colleague Phil Twyford have asked and others. And I want to continue along that line, sir, and hopefully the minister who is in the chair is able to answer those questions, given that we don't have the benefit, sir, of the legal expert advice that we would normally receive, nor do we have the regulatory impact statement, which is just bad practice. This is not the way that legislation ought to be made. And some general questions I would ask first, sir, because the fact that we're debating this bill highlights that mistakes have been made and that we are validating some of those mistakes, is when did the government first find out that the independent hearings panel was undertaking a process that legally they should not have? When did they find that out? Because I understand that the minister drafted the bill some time ago, but yet at the last minute, and the House doesn't have very long to go, we're now been forced into this position that we currently have. And so I'd be really interested in when they found out first about the mistakes that needed to be validated with this particular bill. The other thing I want to, as a general question, I hope the minister would be able to answer, is how much is this exercise going to cost altogether? And how much will be borne by Auckland Council? I say that, sir, because the independent hearings panel, all of their expenses, all of the secretariat support that they receive are paid for by Auckland Council, therefore by ratepayers. And, sir, members in this House may note that there's been this huge debate in the Auckland region where many of us have blamed the Mayor and the Council for the significant hikes in rates that the ratepayers are having to carry. But many of them don't know that it is a result of the burden that's been imposed by the legislation that this government forced on Aucklanders back in the early days in 2000. So the question, how much is this exercise going to cost? And what are the additional costs will it add to the work of the independent hearings panel that will be carried necessarily by the Auckland Council? And just a general question on that is, will central government provide any incentives to Auckland City to meet some of these expenses? So, and that's an important point that I'd like the government to be able to answer, because there'll be many Aucklanders who will be seething with anger that Auckland Council continues to hike up their rates, but they need to put it together. It is largely as a result of the imposition that this government has imposed on Aucklanders. I now want to turn to clause, part 1, clause 4 of the substantive amendments. where we are asked to replace the quorum. Mr. Chairman,
Tracy
Mr. Chairman,
Martin.
Mr. Chairman,
Tracy Martin.